What's up, everybody? This is your boy TMF, and today, as you know by now, we finally have Venom coming to Fortnite, and believe me when I say there's nobody as excited about this as I am. Just like Daredevil, Ghost Rider, and Black Widow before him, it'll be a possible reward for competing in the Trios Cup. And if you don't get him that way, he'll show up in the item shop about a week later and hang out in there for the weekend just like they all did. But that is not what I'm here to talk to you guys about. I've seen some interesting comments from people on the internet. Yeah, I know, crazy, right? Go figure. But yeah, I've seen some interesting comments from folks about how he looks in this rendering. A lot of people are complaining about the fact that he has this axe in the photo. A lot of people are like, wait, I thought only Carnage could do this. Well, I want to clear this up a little for you guys because I know it's a little confusing. But luckily, I've read a lot of comic books. Okay, so it's 100% true that originally we only see Carnage using blades and axes and such. And then later, we see the Life Foundation symbiote known as Phage doing the same thing. But is it a rule that only these two symbiotes can do this? The short answer is no. An out-of-universe explanation would be that the writers and artists didn't come up with this thing until they saw Carnage doing it and they just gave him the blades to fit his serial killer personality. I mean, the first time we see him, the dude's holding a shiv. So the blades are pretty on brand for his personality. Now, an in-universe explanation that a lot of fans like to use for this, that's kind of canon, kind of headcanon, is that originally the symbiote only had Spider-Man's powers because that's the first person it bonded to. So it only had those powers. Later on, it would learn and develop new abilities based on whoever was wearing it. For example, in Venomverse War Stories #1, we see, now this is in a different universe, mind you, but it's supposed to be the exact same symbiote Eddie has. The Venom symbiote bonded to Frank Castle, and it makes gun constructs that shoot out Venom's fangs like bullets. Like this right here is one example, but I believe it's one of the best because it's a clear display of the symbiote exhibiting abilities based on the personality of who it bonded to, even someone with no powers like Frank Castle. And we can use this fact to infer that anyone using the symbiote could do the same thing, but they just wouldn't because that's not in their personality. The best case I can make for this little tidbit about the symbiote is in Venom issue #14. Now, Eddie doesn't actually have the Venom symbiote in this, but he's granted a Dreamstone that he uses to augment himself with the abilities he would have as Venom. Now, in this big battle, Eddie grabs the axe of one of the enemies around him and starts to use it. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, Team F, if he can make himself an axe, why would he pick one up? Now, as the fight goes on, he coats the axe with the symbiote, big air quotes there, to strengthen it. And when a big monster gets too close to him, he actually protrudes spines from himself to stab him like we see him doing video games a lot. Remember Spider-Man Friend or Foe? So we see Eddie make spines and stab the guy. Anyways, then we see him being attacked with a fire blast, and that was sent from Jack-o'-lantern, who also is powered up by a Dreamstone to actually be legitly the Jack-o'-lantern. And he says this key thing right here that's crucial to my argument. He goes, "Oh, did that hurt?" Like he's actually surprised by this, and here's why. We all know the symbiote is hurt by fire. He goes on and says, "Let me get this straight. You used an elven artifact to give yourself the suit of your dreams, all the strength, all the power, and even with the breath of your imagination at hand, you still made yourself vulnerable to fire? I bet that says something about you, huh?" And later on, Brock goes on to admit that he was letting his imagination limit him. So with this information here, I gather that there are plenty of things that Eddie can do with the symbiote, but for whatever reason, he just doesn't, because maybe his imagination or writing. But to further my point, let's bring it way back to Venom #5. In issue number 5, where my man literally grows wings and then puts a spike through Rex's head. Don't worry, he was a symbiote, so he was fine. He just regenerated. It was no big deal. Now, if you know that story, you know the symbiote learned to do this after fighting with the Grendel, thus connecting with the Clintar hive mind, and therefore coming into direct contact with No. And you know what? That's too much lore to go over. So the point is, that's a brand new ability, but it just further proves that Venom can pretty much make whatever he wants to out of the symbiote. The symbiote actually told him to do this. He didn't know he could do this. He didn't think of doing this. The symbiote goes, hey, try this. And he figures that one out. So even if he couldn't do that before coming in contact with No, he sure as heck can do it now. Now, some of the best evidence I have from creating hard weapon constructs before this is in Agent Venom, where he would make swords. Now, this isn't Eddie Brock, but that just adds to the point about the user's imagination. But this is the exact same Venom symbiote that we all know and love. This is Eddie's symbiote. It's just not Eddie using it. Now, further along in the story, we get a flashback to Venom's early days in the Venom Annual #1 that came out in 2018. This is before he becomes a hero or an anti-hero or whatever you want to call it, where he fights Wolverine in a bar, sort of like in Ultimate Spider-Man, and he uses the symbiote to impale him. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm 99.99% sure that you cannot impale somebody with slime or goo. You have to make something sharp. So this proves to me and to anybody with a brain that Venom can make hard constructs before coming into contact with the Grendel. Now, last but not least, we have Absolute Carnage #5, in which Eddie literally makes a sword from nothing but the symbiotes and puts an end to the carnage. All right, that's enough jokes. But keep in mind this happened after he absorbed a bunch of symbiotes. But as of the making of this video, he still has these abilities. Now, I say all that to say this. While that iconic axe will always be linked to Carnage in his psychopathy, the Venom symbiote can make whatever weapon and take whatever form he or Eddie wants to these days. Even a dog. Yeah, a dog. So please leave the Fortnite team alone. Epic didn't do anything wrong. They didn't get anything wrong. They were just trying to make a cool axe because newsflash, in the game you use axes. So why wouldn't Venom decide to make an axe in this situation? So that pretty much sums it up. Please leave a like if you liked the video. If you learned something new, leave a comment. If you have any more questions for me, maybe I'll be able to answer them down there. Please share the video for any of your friends that you might have heard say anything silly about this whole situation. And subscribe too while you're at it. Thanks for listening. TMF out.